I think you guys can see my screen as well. So, will anyone from you tell me what is a portal and how is it different from a website? We know there are websites and we know there are portals, right? Do you find any difference in a portal and a website? You see any difference? Or do you think website and portal both are same? Anyone? Is there a difference between a website and a portal, or a website portal are same, or they are completely different things?
I guess portal needs access for people. We can share details over there.
Right. Yeah. So something on the similar lines. Basically, it portal has the content of the portal is dynamic. It's not a static content. Okay. And website, most of the times the content of the website is a static content, and the other difference between these two things is website content is managed by the company itself, however, or the owner of the website. Portal's content can be managed by the clients or partners, something like that, right? So multiple people actually manage the content of the portal, right? Like for example, if you're talking about a job portal, so in the job portal, if you talk about monster.com, so monster.com does not go and update the list of the jobs on that every day. There are people who post the jobs, right? Or if you talk about some other portal, you will see whatever the customers or the partners of the business, they are posting every day, that gets updated there, right? So when we are talking on these lines, what we have to understand that this not job portal, any portal, because the content is being managed by multiple users, so basically what you need to have there, you need to have a backend database connected to that interface. In website you do not need a backend database, but for portal you will definitely need a database, right? So whatever people are putting on that goes inside the database, and that also displays on the user interface. What thing will come on the user interface out of the entire database? That has some logic, right? So a portal is more of an MVC framework thing, right? Whereas a website might not have an MVC kind of thing. If you just have to put some images and some text on your website, it's almost just the front end part, right? So that is the primary difference. Otherwise, both the things are almost similar, but the way content is managed in both these cases is different, right? And portal has to have a connection with the backend database. So if we go back to that example of job portal, there are people who are putting who post jobs there. I mean, the companies post jobs there. There are individuals who go and put their requirements there, and everything keeps on coming on that portal automatically. So the company cannot afford to have someone sitting there and checking everyone's requirement. A web developer sitting there and he checks everyone's requirement and then puts it in the web on their portal. That will become difficult, right? So there is some logic based on that. Automatically, when you put something, it goes into the database, and from the database, based on the logic, it comes onto the portal, right? So in Salesforce, again we have connection to the database. We have seen we can create Visualforce pages and bring the data on the Visualforce page, right? Now today we will understand how can we use that as on your site, or how can you use that as a portal kind of a thing. Okay. For example, you want to design a job portal through Salesforce. Then how will you do that? You want to give access to people. You want to allow people to come and post things, right? So how this will be done? Alright. So Salesforce allows us to create sites. Alright. So these sites can be created from the Visualforce pages. The Visualforce pages that you design, you can create sites using these pages. Site basically means, and if we have to talk in a very simple language, a site will be an open VF page which anyone can access. Anyone can access means people outside the company can also access. People who do not have the login ID password, they can also access. Usually who will access your Salesforce? Only the ones who have login ID and password, right? Then usually I log into my Salesforce if I have a login ID and password, right? Let's say I'm a recruiting company, ABC Limited. Or let's say if I'm Monster, not recruiting company, Monster, monster.com. Okay, let's say I'm monster.com, right? Now I have a few employees. Let's say we all are employees of Monster. We are 5 employees here. So we all have login ID password, right? But and we can actually access the database of Monster. That's fine. But what Monster wants to do, all the jobs that they have, all the candidates that they have, everything is listed where in the database. So they might have let's say one table for jobs, one object for jobs, one for candidates, one for clients, something like this. These 3-4 tables they might be having. One for skill sets. Alright, let's say these are a few tables that they have. So all these 5 employees do have login ID password, so they can access the database. That's absolutely fine. Depending, obviously, based on their profile settings, they will have the access, but they will have access because they have the login ID password. Now, because Monster.com wants people from anywhere, only these 5 people will not, put the data into the jobs table. They want anyone to be able to put data. If I say anyone, anywhere should be able to put data, then what I have to do, I have to make this page public, right? The the page which we are using for entering the data into the Salesforce, that page we have to make public. We have to give access to public, right? So the simple logic will be standard pages cannot be made public. That thing is out of scope here. So we definitely have to design a custom interface or a custom page, Visualforce page, and we have to make that page public and put it on my website. Got it? Now if anyone from anywhere can see that thing, that page without even login ID password, they can put data into that and the data will get into my database, right? You can have some other page which retrieves that data and displays on it, right? So like you can have one Visualforce page for job posting and you can have one for job listing, for example, right? So this job posting page will allow you to post jobs, and the moment you have posted a job, that goes and displays on the job listing. So just job listing can be a list of jobs, and job posting can be a page for new job, creating new jobs. Got this thing? So this is how it will work, right? So this is an example. I just wanted you to understand how it can be used, and it's very useful. So now you see Salesforce becomes so useful. You have your database in Salesforce. You're using Salesforce for your database. Now, if you want to, create a portal kind of a thing, it becomes so easy for you, right? You just have to design Visual Force pages, make them public, and that's it. So you don't have to worry about all other things. Usually what happens is the companies need to worry on how the data from the database will be displayed on the web page and all those things, and this becomes very simple for you. All right, so let's go and see an example. All right. So before we do this thing, what we have to do, let me explain what exactly we need to do here. First of all, if you want to make anything public, right? If you want to show it to public, then you should have a web address, right? Any company which plans to build a website, what do they need to do first? They need to register a domain, right? Where will people find them? There has to be a location, right? A link, a URL, some address, right? So, for example, if there is any company which plans to build their website, first of all, they need to get the domain, all right? So same thing we have to do here, all right? But Salesforce, because they are not domain providers, they do not sell domains and all, and they do not want to make things complex. What do? They would register a subdomain for you. I mean, in fact, you will have to register for a subdomain. What is that subdomain? Subdomain is, like force.com is the domain that they have. Okay, the subdomain will be, let's say, abcd.force.com. So this is a subdomain. So they allow you to build your own subdomain on force.com first thing, based on the availability, right? So you will register. Now what will happen? Your website or your Visual Force page can be redirected to this link. Got this thing? For people to have access, they need to have an address, right? So for that reason, first of all, you'll have to register for the subdomain with Salesforce. They will take care of this. Okay. So anyone who has this has the actual domain. Let's say I have a domain xyz.com. I'm just telling about this web designing concept, so that you can relate to it. This part is not that important for you, but still, let me tell you about this. If you own this domain, let's say www.xyz.com, right? Now you can use these things also, www. So you can form any subdomain, like abcd.xyz.com. So now you don't have to, purchase this extra. So something you can easily create. So Salesforce also owns this domain, force.com. So this registers the subdomain for you. All right. Now you put your Visualforce page on this subdomain and you share this link with your users. Okay, this is where they will find you. All right. So how do we register for that subdomain, or how do we create that site? It's very simple. You just have to go to setup, then develop sites, right? So you'll go to setup, develop sites, click on that, scroll down. All right, this is where you have to register for the subdomain. I told you it is on force.com, but for developer edition, because it's a free edition, this is where they provide you the subdomain. This thing is extra. So when you have a purchased license, then they will give you a subdomain on force.com. So let's say my subdomain is, see, your subdomain should be something like this, mycompany.force.com. So force.com is common. You can put your company name and you have to check availability if that thing is available. Let's say I want to put a subdomain check availability. If that is available with them, it's available. So which means you can take it. So you just have to say I accept these terms and conditions and register. Done. So Salesforce will create this domain for you. Register this force.com domain name for you. Are you sure? Yes. Okay. So this will take a minute. So this complete thing becomes your URL now. Alright. So your URL is this long thing. Your site is this. Got it? Now you have to create pages on this URL. So it's more like you have created a website. Now you can put your Visualforce pages there. That is how simple it is. So just click on new. Okay. So before I start creating this, let me see which page I am going to use. So you have to use a page with custom controller. As I told you earlier, standard controller will not be used here. So you have to use custom controller pages for sites, because site cannot use the standard logics and all those things. It's an open source, right? So Salesforce logics and all those things will not work there. So for that reason, you have to build a custom controller. Your logic should be all custom defined logics. Page 8 we want to display. That's fine. So create a page on that the domain that you have registered, or create a site on that domain. All right. So domain you have registered already. You have to create a site. Site is more like a page, one single page. Okay. Like a company's website can have multiple pages. Now you have registered for the domain, you can create pages. In this developer edition, you will be able to create only one page. So let's create that. Give it a name and a label. Web address. So this is, so far this is just the domain, right? After that, what will be the page name? Okay, so complete address will become from here till here. Right? This is a page name. Okay. And the only thing that you have to select is active site homepage. Active site homepage means what page you want to display on the site. So we thought of page 8, right? This is a Visualforce page. So you just pick it from here. For active site homepage, if you click on this, you will see this window coming up, and you will have all your Visualforce pages listed here. So use the one that you want to display, page 8. Alright. Other things you don't have to give anything, leave everything as it is. Save. Done. Right? So your site is created, you just have to go and activate it. Alright? So this is the complete address of your site from here till here. Alright? Now you can share this link with everyone and they can access things from here. So you want, you can click on activate. So it's active, link is there with you. Let me just put the link in the chat window. Okay, use this link and see if you can see the data. When you use this link, can you see data on the page? No, we don't see data here, right? Did anyone try the link? But we don't see data. I mean, if you can see on my page also, using this link, I can open the page. I've opened the page, see? Now this page is, my Visualforce page is available on this link. So I share this link with anyone, they can open the page, but they do not see the data. What is the reason we cannot see the data? The reason is that we still need to give access, public access for the data. So, small thing that you have to go and do from here is go back to your site, go and do public access settings. Public access setting means give public access for the data that you want to display on the page. So that is something which you have to do manually. So we'll just click on public access settings of the site, and we will notice that there is a profile, there is a separate profiles for the viewers of this page. The site that you have created, Salesforce creates a separate profile for it. See, this is the site name, account list. So it has created account list profile. So because it's going to be open source, then what will happen? You have to you have to define the access for viewers of this page. So my end user will definitely not have all access and all that, right? So my end users will not have all access and all that stuff. So for that, what we have to do, we just have to go and define the access that the end user, though I'm making it public, but what end users can do. They should not have all the access to my Salesforce data just because I have allowed them to see the data on the site, right? So in this profile, you will have to go and define what access you want to give them. So at least they need, anyone who needs to see the data of account, they need view access on accounts. I'm trying to display a list of accounts. So for anyone to see that, I just need to give a view access or a read access on account. As of now, there is no access. You see, nothing. So you just need to go and give a read access on accounts. That's it. The moment you have given this, click on save. It's done. Alright. So now once you have edited the profile, now your users will get to see the data. Right? So this is how it works. General recommendation will be whenever you are designing a Visualforce page for a site, remove this header part also. Right? So we should not look that it's a Visualforce page or something which has come from Salesforce. It should just look a very generic kind of a page to the end users. Correct? Now, if you want the end users to be able to create data, as I was telling you that we will have a job posting page and a job listing page. So list for listing, where the end users just need to see the data. The access that we have given is a read access, that's fine. But if you want some people to be able to post the jobs, in that case what you have to do? In that case you have to give a write access also or create access. So that is also something which will be required. Got that? So whatever you want the end users to do on the page, based on that they should have access defined on the profile of that particular site. Simple. Now you can easily create a site. So the moment you have created a site which people can access, you can easily get the data from your end users. Now you can share the link with all your recruiters. If you are monster.com and you have a long list of recruiters, you can just give this link to all your recruiters and ask them that okay fine, go ahead and put your jobs. You can share a link of the job listing with all your all the people who come for searching jobs on your website, that okay, here is the list of jobs, and you do not have to do it every day. Whatever recruiter is posting is actually automatically going into a database. So database is being managed. Data automatically comes onto Visualforce page based on the logic that you have put. So that part is being managed. End users are looking into that. They are applying. So there can be applications. So everything is being managed and you do not have to do anything. Alright. So are we clear on the sites thing? Any questions? Alright. So if you do not have any question, then the next thing that we're going to talk about is on the similar lines, customer portals and partner portals. So this customer portal and partner portal, these are two things which Salesforce provides you, and these are kind of licenses which Salesforce provides you for external users. So I'll just give you an example. Let's say you are running a business, okay, and your business has a customer support team. All right. Now you see, you realize that these customer support team spends a lot of time into answering the questions of the customers, and that too the customers are not very happy and satisfied with that. You decide that okay, fine, let me create a portal where the customers can log in themselves and see the status of their queries and all that stuff, or they can find solutions to some of their questions. Then what you can do, Salesforce provides you a default solution which is called a customer portal. Okay, so customer portal is what? This gives access to the customers. Okay, this gives customers the access to some part of the data that they of their company. Okay, the cases that they have logged in, the solutions, they can go and see these things. All right. Rather than a customer logging in a case and every day he calling and asking your customer support executive what is the status of the case, you can give an access to that customer. You can give the access to the customer himself. Say that okay, you log in yourself and see the status of your case. What is it? You log in and try to find out the solution of your problem yourself. So that kind of a thing, right? The same thing can be done for partners, and there is something called partner portal. But here what happens, here you have to purchase licenses for them. So they will also be users, but they will be external users, and there are different licenses for customers and partners. Okay. So that there is a very simple logic here. So if you want to enable customers portal for your customers, what you have to do, first of all you will have to go and enable it in Salesforce. But before you enable it, first of all you will have to purchase the licenses. So any company which does not have licenses for customer portal users, they cannot enable it. In our developer edition, by default we have licenses, so we are going to enable it, right? So how will we enable? You just need to go to setup, then go to customize, and you have to go to customer portal. Alright, so go to setup, customize, customer portal, settings, by default it's not enabled. You have to go and click on edit to enable it, then click on save. Done. Okay, so your customer portal is enabled. All right, Now you just have to go and convert the contacts into users. See, when I enable customer portal, which means my customers should be able to log in, right? So what I have to do, I have to create login ID password for the customer. That is what we have to do, right? Which means the customer needs to be created as a user also. For example, you are running this company and you have your one of your customer is IBM, and under IBM there is a person called Ajay Kumar. So currently IBM is listed as an account, right, in your system, in your database, and this guy Ajay Kumar is listed as a contact. The moment I'm talking about creating a license or a login ID password for this user, what I have to do, I also have to create a user with this name. The way we create internal user, we'll have to create external user also, right? Then Salesforce will create login ID password for this user. And then you will share this login ID password with this user. Then this user will use that login ID password to access. Right? So this is the logic. The person who is already listed in my contact needs to be created as a user. Okay, so whichever customer or whichever contact you want to provide that customer portal license, you just have to go to that contact and say create an external user from this contact. That's it, and Salesforce will automatically take care of the rest of the things. So let's go and set up some. Now once your customer portal is enabled, you can just go and start creating external users from your contacts. All right, so we'll just go and do that. See, as I told you that external users now can be created from the contacts. Now if you come to a contact, open any contact like this one, Jack Rogers. Open this contact. You will see a button here which was not available here earlier. Manage external user. Click on this, enable customer user, right? The moment you click on this one, it will create a user of this contact. The contact will be there. The contact will not get deleted. It will be there. So because it's a contact for you, in addition to this contact, the Salesforce will also create a user for this. So let's go and first of all let me change the email ID so that I receive this email. Alright, so what I've done, I have changed the email ID of this. Let's convert it into a customer user. Click on this. See, automatically Salesforce will bring you to the screen, new user screen. Take all the details from that contact's name and everything it has taken, email ID. It takes everything. By default, the profile and license it uses is of the customer portal. I told you you have to have these licenses, right? Customer portal licenses. So it has taken that license by default. Everything is filled. Just have to click on save. The moment you save it, this person receives an email to set the password. The way any user in Salesforce receives, right? When you created your account first time as a user, you received an email to set the password and all that stuff, right? Same way, this user also must have received an email. So let me just go and check my inbox. Give me a moment. So here is the email that I have received. Customer portal username and password are here. So this is what the user receives. They receive the username and password for their customer portal login. That's it. Now the customer can log in using this username and password. But where will this customer log in? That is the other question that we have. Where would this customer log in actually? This customer will log in into using the URL. I'll show you where will we get that URL. So the link that this customer will use for logging in, you will again get it in setup, customize customer portal. So if you go to setup, customize, customer portal, right. Now go and click on the customer portal that you just enabled. You will see a login URL there. Alright. So you will have to share this URL with your customers. They need to use this URL to log in into their systems. So the customer has to use this URL. They will not use your salesforce.com URL. They will use this URL, right? When they use this URL, there is an option of putting the username and password there. They'll have to enter their username and password. So let me fetch my username and password from here. And then click on login. Change your password. So that is done. Now the customer can, this is the login of the customer, right? They can come and create new cases from here. They can search for solutions from here. The solutions are basically, some common issues and the solutions listed in your system, which the customer can actually come and try and find some solution. They can see what cases they have logged in, what is the status of the cases, they can create new cases. So this is the access that they have, not more than this. So your customer user will just have access to their data. They can create cases, they can track the cases that they have raised. That is what they can do. That's the only access that they have, right? So clear on this thing. The customer portal, partner portal also works in the same way. So in partner portal, the only difference is that you have to go and enable the partner portal thing. So you just have to go to setup, customize. Under customize, there is something called partners. Yes. So under partner, you have to go and enable the settings. That's it. Partners, you will go and click on settings and you have to enable it the same way. So everything else is same. Only thing is that these are two different names which have been given, customer portal, partner portal, but the concept is same. So partner should also be first of all listed in your accounts and contacts, and then you will convert that into your partner portal login. then a username password will be created for them, and same way you will receive you will have a link and the partners need to log in using that link. Got it? So both the things that we have discussed, the customer portal, partner portal, as well as the sites that we discussed earlier, these are all used for allowing the access of your data to the external users. So far whatever we have dealt with, we have been talking about internal users. In both these cases, what we are doing, we are giving the access to external users. What is the difference between customer portal, partner portal concept, or let's say the customer portal and the site? Customer portal is still restricted through login, and you still have to pay certain amount to Salesforce. You have to purchase license, right? So this is possible only if you have a limited number of users. Okay, if you have a very small number of users, limited number of users, you can purchase license for them, that's fine. Okay, Salesforce will give you a nicely designed login ID password concept, and you do not have to do anything for that. For site, this is something which you can give access to a bigger group. If you have 10,000 users, 10,000 end users who will be using it. Now purchasing license for 10,000 users will be difficult for you, so you can keep it open. Alright. While you keep it open, at that point of time also you can control it through login ID password. But for that putting login ID password, you will have to put custom logics there. Got this thing? So if you want, let's say we again go back to Monster. Now anyone cannot just go and start putting jobs there, or anyone cannot just go and start putting resume there. First of all, you need to create your login, right? So we can also do similar kind of thing using site. But what we have to do, we again then have to, if I need to protect my data through login thing, I have to create one more table for the end users, where first of all they come and register. While registering, they put their first name, last name, username, password, and at a later point of time, whenever they want to access it, they will have to provide that login ID and password, right? So that is the thing. That is how it works. Clear on this? The sites, portals, please tell me if you have any questions, doubts, queries, questions. Simple? Alright. So if we are simple, if you are okay on this, then the next thing that we are going to talk about is packages. Packaging and distribution. Now what is this packaging and distribution concept? What are we packing and what are we distributing? Okay. Now this packaging and distribution is basically about sharing your Salesforce application components with someone else. Right? Components can be anything. It can be your objects that you have created, it can be the fields that you have created, it can be your profiles, it can be anything. The Visualforce pages, applications, right? So all these are components, right? So whenever we are creating an application or designing or customizing an application, we create certain components for that. If you want to give that application or some part of that application to someone else, let's say I have designed an application and I want to share the application with you all. Okay, I have my developer org and you guys have your own developer orgs. Now the point is that I cannot directly transfer from my developer org to your developer org. I cannot send it directly. So then what I'll need to do? Then I will need to create a package of the components that I want to share with you. It's a very simple thing. I'll create a package of all the components that I want to share with you. and then I will upload them all on a common drive or common cloud. Okay, the moment I upload it on the common drive, Salesforce will allow us to do that. Now, once you have uploaded it on the common drive, Salesforce will give you a download URL. Once it's uploaded on the common drive, you will receive a download. The way we work with a Dropbox, or the way we work with a Google Drive. So what do we do on a Google Drive? We upload it on Google Drive and then share that link with the other person. The other person uses that link to download that document. Same thing. You just have to create a package, put all the components, necessary components in that package, upload it, and then Salesforce will provide you a download URL, share the download URL. You just have to share it with whoever you want to share it with. Share it, and that user will have to use the download URL to download the package. This is how simple it is. So let's see an example. For creating package, you just have to go to setup, create package. So you will go to setup, create packages. So here we are. So as I told you, creating a package, you have to go to setup and then create and click on packages. So I think everyone could hear whatever we discussed before that. So packaging basically means allowing us to transfer some of the components from our org, our Salesforce org, to some other Salesforce org, right? So we just go and click on setup, create package. The moment you start creating a package, or you have an option of creating a new package here. The moment you start creating a package, you have to put the components into the package. What all components you want to transfer or share it with other. So it can be anything. I'll just show you what all things can be there. Before that, let's give a name to the package. Let me call it package 1. It can be anything, whatever name you want to give it. And then you click on save. Okay, so your package is ready. So the box is ready. Now you'll have to start putting stuff into the box, right? So what components you want to add, you can click here and add the components. Just click on add. And then keep on adding the components, whatever you want to add. See, whatever you have in Salesforce, everything is here. Starting from your validation rules, workflow rules, email alerts, applications, objects, fields, pages. So whatever we have here in Salesforce, reports, everything can be put into package, right? Let's say this employee management app I want to add into the package. I've designed this app and I want to share it with someone else. So I'll just move this app into package. Along with this app, all the things which are within this app, they will also be included, right? You see, all the objects and the fields of under this app have also been included. So I want to share this app with you now. So components you have added, now you just have to click on upload. Click on upload. So this package will get uploaded and you will get a download URL. You have to give a version name. Version I put October 2014 1.0. Do you have a release note? You can define a URL where users can see the release note. And that much is not required. Post installation instructions, in case you want to provide any of those, that is also not required for us. At this point of time, we will just go ahead and upload this. Done. So my upload is done, successfully completed. Now I will just need to share this URL with you all, and you can download the application using this. Alright. So I just need one volunteer who can download this application, and we can show a demonstration to everyone. So who will do that? Anuj, can you do that? Shall I make you the presenter? Chetan? I just need one person to click on that link and download it on your developer org. So who can do that? I'll just make that person as presenter so that we can see how the downloading part will work. So uploading we have done, we have created the installation URL, right? So you just need one volunteer to download it on the developer org. Who can do that? Apurva, can you do that? Shall I make you the presenter? Come on guys, I just need one volunteer, quick. Anyone who do not
Hello,
have...
Jeep. Salesforce is asking me for activation. Just a minute.
but before that, just let me make you presenter 1 minute. Acha, you started doing it. No.
Yeah, but let me check. I've received message or not.
Okay. Log in into that.
Yes, I've received message.
So now you have to understand how the person who receives, who you share the link with, how will that person, let's say you have received installation URL from someone, how will you install that application on your system or on your org? That part we will understand here.
Okay, Jeep, here it is.
Alright, so you just have to do a small thing.
Yes.
Okay. So the moment you click on the link, it asks you to log in into your developer org or any Salesforce org, right? It's not only for developer org, it can be for any paid edition also. So they will ask you to log in into Salesforce. The moment you log in into Salesforce, you will get package installation details, as you can see on the screen. So you just have to click on continue from here. and the package will be installed. Okay, so there are some errors because I think you already have some objects with the same name, right? So what you can do is you can just go and edit the name of the existing components. So what you can do is you can quickly go and change the name of the objects that you have. You already have a project object here, right? In your system, just go and make it project 1, and you have a consultant object, go and make it consultant 1. Just quickly go and edit the ones that you have, so that this package, you cannot go and make changes in the package because that is beyond your reach. So what you can do is you can go and make changes in your own objects. So just go to setup and change the name of the objects, project and consultant. Chetan, are you? Can you hear me? Oh, he's also offline. Hello, can others hear me? Hello. So Chetan seems to be offline. We need someone else to do this. Can anyone else? Or I think, oh no, he is online. Chetan, hello.
Hello, Jeet.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah, the error that you are getting is because you already have two objects with the same name. The ones that you are importing and the ones you already have in the system, they have the same name. So in this kind of a situation, what you should do, you should just go ahead and edit the name of the existing objects, right? Change them to something else. Instead of project, you make it project 1, the existing ones, right? And then you will install the application or install the package. Now, this is how it will work. So here we have duplicate names. So for that reason, this error we have got. Otherwise, we would not have got this error. So I think that should be fine. So you more or less understand how it works. Now let's just understand a small thing. What happens after this package is installed? The moment this package is installed, the different components of this packages go and sit with their similar kind of components. Like objects will go to the list of custom objects, all the fields will go to the fields within the objects, the validation rules will go where the validation rules should be. So that ways, right? So it will not be like a concrete package anymore. Once it is installed, all those components will go and take their respective places. So any objects that you have installed through another package will be listed under custom objects or any of your validation rules that you have installed through a package that validation rule will go and sit within that object for which the validation rule has been defined. So wherever it should be, right? So you want to find the components of a package, you will find it. Whatever component you are finding, you have to go to that place. So then that becomes a part of your Salesforce org. So it does not, after installation, it does not stay as a package. Different components go in different places, right? So that is how it is. Then you can try, make some changes as you want. If you want to add certain fields, let's say you have taken a package from a friend and or from some other developer, and then you want to go ahead and make some certain changes, that can be done. That's absolutely fine. All right. So that is how we create packages and distribute it with others, distribute it to others. Okay, so this is about packaging and distribution.
Hello, Jeet.
Yeah, tell me.
Sorry, but can you come again, because I think there was a connection loss from my side.
Yeah, so I was just saying that once this package is installed, you had an error because there were duplicate names object existed. So otherwise you can simply install it. Once you have installed the package, all the different components go into different locations, like objects will go and sit with other objects, fields will go into the objects that they belong to. So that ways all the components will go and take their respective places in your Salesforce org, right? So after that, to find the components or to edit them, you don't have to go to any package or anything. You can simply go to that particular location where you can find that component and edit that. Let's say you want to edit an object that you have installed from a package, then you don't have to go to setup packages and all those things. You can simply go and find the object under setup create objects. So any object which has come through package also will be listed under here under the objects only. Got it? So that is the thing. So then that way you can just go ahead and make the changes or edits. Alright. So now once we understand this packages concept also, the next thing that we are going to talk about is very similar to this packages is your sandbox and deployments. What is a sandbox? A sandbox is kind of a test environment. Alright, so sandbox basically in Salesforce means a test environment. What is a test environment? Test environment is where you design things. So you will not create everything directly on the production. So there is a test environment and there is a production environment, or in Salesforce terminology we call it the sandbox and the production. So whatever you are developing, you will develop it on the sandbox. Once you see it is working fine, then you will deploy it to the production. As simple as that. You do not deploy something directly, or you do not create something directly on the production, because you do not know whether that will work good or not. You do not want to unnecessarily make your production environment complex, or you do not want to lose the production data. So we do not work directly on production. However, for developer edition that you have used for your learning, there is no sandbox concept, because developer edition itself is like a sandbox, right? It's for learning purpose. So there is no production here, in fact, in developer. But in real scenario, most of the times you will be required to do the development on sandboxes and then move them to the production. Some cases, if you are very confident that you are doing a small thing, you can directly do it on production also, right? But if you are doing a little bit of development, it is usually done on sandbox, right? So for sandbox, I want you to understand one thing. So basically what happens is you purchase a license from Salesforce, you get license for production. Okay. See, in our developer org we do not have this thing. For our developer org we do not have the sandbox thing, right? I'll try and show it to you. Give me a minute. Let me see if I have my own login. So because see, out of all these things, sandbox is one thing for which you do not have access, because developer edition will not give you sandbox, and you do not have a paid edition. So sandbox is one thing where you have to understand a few things and keep in mind. Give me a minute, I just have to fetch the password for my. So first thing is, you will have a normal license. The administrator of the organization will have the option of creating sandbox. So first thing is create sandbox. So creating sandbox is very simple. If your organization has sandboxes, you'll have to go and create it on setup, data management, and there is sandbox. So for creating the sandbox, you just have to go to setup, data management, sandboxes. Before data loader, there is this option sandboxes, which is not there in our developer edition. So just click on sandboxes. The moment you click on the sandboxes, it will show you what all sandboxes are available to your organization, right? So different types of sandboxes are available. Now there are three phases of a development. Basically, one is development, actual development, then happens testing, and then is production. This is what happens, right? First of all, your developer develops something, right? Now there is another team which will test it, whether whatever the developer has developed is working fine, and then it is finally deployed. If it passes the testing thing, it goes to the production environment and it's deployed, right? So this is the natural thing. Some companies usually just have these two steps, development and directly production. So in the development environment itself, they do the testing also. Some companies would directly get into production. No, I mean, small developments can be done directly on production if you just have to go and add a field, and you are very sure that you know the kind of field you want to add. You can simply go and do it in production also. You don't have to make it complex. So, but the longest process is this one: development, testing, production, right? So for production, so we are talking about the org that we already have, right? For development, you can have sandbox, and for testing, you will need sandbox. So Salesforce provides you two types of sandboxes. One is a developer sandbox, and one is data sandbox. A developer sandbox is, again, it has only a developer sandbox. As you can see, developer sandbox, developer pro sandbox, partial data, full data sandbox. So there is only a developer sandbox, developer pro sandbox. These are for development. Okay. Data sandbox are again of two types: partial data, full data. Now, developer sandbox is basically used for development, and it does not have any of the actual data, no original data. Alright, so this is for developers. You do not want to give them any original data, and very limited data. Alright, let's say 5 MB kind of thing. Developer pro sandbox is where no actual data is there. You have dummy data. So in this one, in both these sandboxes, you just have dummy data. Your organization's actual data is not available. Right? So it's used for development, and you don't want developers to go and see your company's actual data, even one single record of them. So only dummy data is provided here, right? And it's not the actual data which is available here. All right. For this data sandbox, you have the actual data available in these sandboxes, right? So in partial data, you have almost 30-40% of your organization's data available. And in a full sandbox, you will have complete data of your actual environment, the actual org, production org. So full sandbox is complete replica of your production. So all the data, record by record, everything is available there, right? So sometimes some companies do, just want to make changes also to the data through the sandbox and then deploy it. So, or test it rigorously on different set of data. So testing it on dummy data and testing it on real data, these are two different things, right? So what you can do is you can use this partial data sandbox or a full data sandbox to do the testing part, and development can happen on this developer edition. So the difference between these sandboxes is the data. These two have actual data. This has partial data but actual thing. This has full data, actual thing. These do not have actual data. Some dummy records are there and the development goes around that. Got that thing? So that is about the sandbox. Now whatever sandboxes are available to your org, you will create one of those sandboxes. Now once the sandbox is created, usually when you create a sandbox, you give a name to it. Like I have created a sandbox and I have given it a name, right? Now once the sandbox is created, any user from your org who has who can log in into sandbox will log in using this link, test.salesforce.com. To log in into sandbox, you do not use salesforce.com, you use test.salesforce.com. If you don't use this, it will not work. It will throw you an error. So this is one thing that you need to remember, keep in mind, right? A simple question, and sometimes people are not able to answer because they are not aware of it. In the interview, they might ask you, have you worked on sandbox? You say yes. How did you log in into that? You do not know. So this is what we use for logging into sandbox. The moment you put test.salesforce.com and then you put the login ID password, same way. So Salesforce can understand that you are trying to log in into sandbox. Okay. Now will there be a change in your username also? Yes, it has to be. because username has to be unique, right? The change in your username will be this. Let's say your username is jeetsingh@abcd.com. This is the username for your production, right? Let's say this is my production username. For Sandbox, you will have to use abcd.com.sandbox name. So this should be your username then. Got it? So this will be the URL that you have to use, and this will be your username on the Sandbox. Got this thing? Now once you have logged in into Sandbox, you will see the similar kind of thing. If we have this Sandbox thing, no. The moment you log in into Sandbox, the only difference that you will notice in a Sandbox is you will have a Sandbox name written here at the top. Here it will be written Sandbox and then the Sandbox name. So in this case it will be written Sandbox : Sandbox 1. So that will help you understand that you are okay, you are on the Sandbox, you are not on the actual production environment, right? So that is it. That is something that you have to understand. All right. Right. So we have understood the concept of Sandbox. So different types of Sandbox, how to create Sandbox, and then how to log in into Sandbox. These things we have understood. Now whatever you develop on the Sandbox, Sandbox is a different org and your production is a different org. Let me just take it a two-step process: development and production. So development Sandbox is a different org and your production is a different org. The data needs to transfer from one place to the other place. For that, what we need to do? So we just have to go and define this thing there. The same package concept is applicable there, right? But you don't create a package there. To move from one Sandbox to production, we have another concept which is similar to package. I mean, if you have understood the concept of package, you will understand this. But this concept is all about deploying. So here you don't have to go to package. Here you have to go to deploy, and here the terminology that is used is called change set. Works exactly like a package, but here we call it change set. Okay. So I'll tell you the process. I cannot show you the deployment because this is a client's login. But the process is pretty simple. You log in into Sandbox, okay, and you design certain things. Let's say you created an object or whatever that got approved. Now you have to move that into production. So what you will need to do, from the Sandbox you will go to deploy, and then you will click on outbound change set because you want to send an change set outside that. So you will just go and say outbound change set. Alright, click on that outbound change set, and then you just go ahead and click on so outbound change set. The moment you click on outbound change set, you see this. You will see that this is more like a package only. From this org to your connected org. So connected org will be your production environment. Click on continue. All right. So you Click on outbound change set, click on new. You will give it a name. Same way, the way you create a package, no difference. And then you will be asked to add components into it. Once you have added components, you will upload that. Got this thing? So that is what you have to do. So if you know how to create a package and share it, same way. The only difference here is you don't have to share the URL and everything. Okay, alright. So outbound change set, create change set, add components, upload. Right? It will take some time, whatever 5-10 minutes, and the upload will be done. Once the upload is done, then you should log in into your production. Here there is no concept of URL sharing and everything. Now you should log in into your production. In production you should go to, see whatever has been sent from there, now you have to go and receive it in the production. So in the production environment you will go to deploy and click on inbound change set. So in the inbound change set you will see the change set that has been sent. So the change set 1, if that has been sent from there, you will get to see that. Okay, you just have to go and validate. So inbound change set also is here. See, on the production you should go and click on inbound change set instead of outbound change set. You will click on inbound change set. So all the change sets which have been sent to your production from the sandbox will be available here. So you will have change sets awaiting deployments, and then you will select the change set that you want to deploy, click and deploy. That's it. So that is how simple this sandbox concept is, right? Validate and deploy. It will take 4-5 minutes and it will get deployed. The same concept. The packaging thing, if we understand, the only difference between packaging and this change set is change set can happen within connected orgs. Connected orgs are like sandbox and production are connected. Package will work on orgs which are not connected at all, like your environment and my environment. There is no connection. It's not sandbox production, right? It's not front end back end. So there you will use package, otherwise you will use your change set. Okay, tell me, so is that clear? Sandboxes and deployments? Alright. So that's clear. I think we are good here.